Hi, everyone. Just real welcoming people in here. This is the 6th of 52 sessions that Mynoo's doing, and we're focusing today on mental well-being, the 7 anchors of mental well-being. Mynoo's going to be sharing what they are, when and where, and how to utilize them as you live your life with the intention of regenerating aliveness. And the one thing that we talked about before I came on was your thoughts really impact your mental health and well-being. And Mynoo reminded me that it's way beyond your thoughts. There's other anchors that she's going to share today, which I'm really excited to find out what they are. So welcome, everyone. We're welcome on Facebook Live as well. Welcome to the call. And Mynoo, are you there? Are you live? Welcome, everyone.
Hi, just give me
Welcome, everyone.
just give me a moment.
Okay.
Hi, just give me
Welcome, everyone.
just give me
Welcome, everyone. Just give us a moment here. The human miracle. We're going to be talking about mental well-being and the 7 anchors today. Mynoo, these 7 anchor points of mental well-being, and beyond just our thoughts, there's other anchors that we're going to hear about today that I'm wondering what they are, because I just thought our thoughts. So she's going to share what they are and when and where and how to utilize them in your life, with the intention of regenerating aliveness and how to keep that aliveness alive. So with that, Mynoo.
Thank you, Dea.
Sure. You're very welcome.
So as always, this is more of a session where you sort of represent like the archetype of different thoughts and different experiences that people have. So if there are any particular questions that show up for you, you can literally, either raise your hand or interrupt my flow and I'll address them. And I'll leave you to let people in.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to, put something in the chat that they want answered or anything, please feel free to do that as well.
Great. Thank you, Dea. So yes, this series we are calling the Human Miracle, and our focus is on the 12 building blocks. We have so far worked with full spectrum wellness, and that's how we began this particular series. The Human Miracle is about living a full spectrum life. And then we went into the first anchor, which is really all about food as our medicine. And we did a series on that. And then we went into water and did a whole series on that. And now we have the mental well-being that we are talking about. And our focus with this is, my intuitive guidance is we're going to have 4 sessions on this. And today is the first of the 4 sessions that we are going to have. Mental well-being. So there are a few things that are worth understanding about the words, understanding the nuances of these words. Because when I'm doing these online sessions, the power lies in really understanding the nuances. And here I'm talking about the 7 anchor points of mental well-being. What they are, how you can utilize them to live your life so that you can regenerate aliveness. So first of all, let's just consider an anchor. Now, Dea and I were discussing this before we all came in, that an anchor, by its very construction, is actually unstable. it requires an anchor point for it to give that power to stabilize anything. So you are the anchor. You are the anchor here. And what was fabulous is to really know that we have 7 anchor points that are available to us. When it comes to mental, we often only think about thoughts, but that's only one of the 7 anchor points. So once you get that you are the anchor, you have this perfectly orchestrated construction of your being, which is full spectrum, and you can actually attach yourself to anything that is an anchor point, and you can stabilize yourself, you can stabilize a relationship, you can stabilize any situation that you may be in. It's all down to you because you are that anchor. Now, without utilizing the anchor point, you are this amazing being that has all of this potential and all of these powers, but they don't fully express themselves until you're able to utilize the anchor points. So with that having been said, let's look at a few other really important understandings. Well-being. I said mental well-being. Well-being is a state of being comfortable, healthy, or happy. So that's useful to understand that it's simply a state of being comfortable, happy, and healthy. So mental well-being is a state where you feel comfortable, happy, and healthy. Regenerating aliveness. How you utilize these anchors to regenerate aliveness. Regeneration is actually to grow again. So the idea here is, with mental well-being, you experience aliveness, and you can actually utilize these anchor points in such a way that that aliveness continues to grow again and again and again. Aliveness itself, I was just really engaged with, what is aliveness? Aliveness is actually, according to the dictionary, the property of being animated. Having animal life as distinguished from plant life, which is quite sedentary, if you like. So it's about being animated. So, regenerating that ability, our ability to feel animated, which means it isn't only about thoughts. It's about your vitality. It's about your expression. It's about your, the dynamics in any engagement that you may be involved in. Aliveness also is, the synonyms of aliveness also are things like awake or aware or cognizant, conscious, sensible. So in the context of being animated, there is a context to that, which is you're awake, you're aware, you're cognizant, you're conscious, and you're sensible. So it's like as if you have a knowingness of something. And in that knowingness, aliveness also, it puts the attention on that there is an acute sensitivity that we have within us. And that is a very key aspect of aliveness. Otherwise, you're an organism that has got life and you're breathing. But aliveness highlights that there is an implication of acute sensitivity with which you operate and run your life. So let's begin with our anchors. The first anchor. The first anchor is wellness. I do not edit anything that comes through when I'm here preparing for these sessions, So I was sharing with Dea, I receive the downloads and I, write them up and I implement them before we come on. So I am able to relate many of my own experiences as I'm elaborating on each of these points. So the number one is wellness. well-being, you heard me already say, is a state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. It's a state. Wellness is, in fact, the act of practicing healthy habits on a regular basis. Wellness, and through this practice, you attain greater physical and mental and emotional health outcomes. And as a result, instead of simply surviving, you actually start experiencing thriving. The act of practicing healthy habits. There are various things hidden in this, and that's why it's an anchor. We're talking about practice. Practice is all about implementation, like putting into implementation. There is so much that we have learned in our lives. And if you were to actually look at, I mean, even these pearls of wisdom that I've been doing, navigating the unknown that we did, and now what we're doing here, you may find that there's only a small proportion that you actually implement. Putting it into daily practice such that it becomes a habit is a whole different layer of practice. And we do that in certain areas, even if it is cleaning our teeth or having, washing ourselves. When we were born, none of that existed. But at some point, we adopted it as a practice, which became a daily one, and it became a healthy habit. So when you are looking at wellness as an anchor in the context of mental well-being, then look at what are these healthy habits, or what are these healthy actions that you might have taken in the past that actually made you feel really good, and choose one or two of them as an integral part of your daily practice. And when you practice something daily, it does become a habit. So, for example, I have a whole number of daily practices. As some of you who've done the journey into miracles, I've shared those with you. But in the context of mental, where I'm actually in a state of feeling comfortable, healthy, and happy, I looked at, right, of all the practices that I do every single day that have now become healthy habits, which of these actually put me in that state of mental well-being? Because I'm going to convert those actions into the wellness anchor point. I'm going to, attach myself to the wellness anchor point. And what I found was I always wake up acknowledging my miracle lens. And a miracle lens, you've heard me share previously, is a lens that we all have, which shows you what's making your heart sing. What is this beautiful thing that is occurring right there that is making your heart sing? That is what a miracle lens is. So I wake up in the morning, acknowledging my miracle lens and using it for a bit. And I actually use it for 20 minutes. And I use it for 20 minutes where I actually acknowledge what's making my heart sing right now. And really what the miracle lens does, it is like a focal lens. It focuses on bringing everything up close and personal to you, that which is making your heart sing. And by acknowledging it, you realize that in a matter of moments, there are so many things that are making your heart sing, however disturbed you may be. And, there are pretty disturbing things that are occurring on the planet at the moment, and there may be such disturbing things also occurring in your life. In amidst all of that, when you pick up your miracle lens, you don't have to process anything. The miracle lens immediately, and you acknowledge, I'm using my miracle lens now, it goes zoom, focus on what's making your heart sing. The fact that your heart is beating, it is singing. So for me, that is a healthy habit. that I practice every single day. Now, the great thing is, I already have a number of daily practices, so it's quite a big chunk of my time that goes in all of this. And this healthy habit of acknowledging the miracle lens, I can do whilst I'm doing my breathing practice. And I have an hour and a half of breathing practice. So 20 minutes of that working with a miracle lens is pretty cool. And I actually saw that there are several other anchor points I also work with on a daily basis. So lo and behold, I have a collection of healthy habits that I put into practice every single day. So when you want something to become a habit, right? It isn't about just going to the gym because you got a New Year resolution and you're going to do it for a period of time. You actually declare, I'm taking this on as a habit. So like I've taken on, I declared in 2023, quite publicly actually, a medicine-free living. What I did realize at that time was medicine-free equals even supplement-free, which I used to take in the form of medicines, right? Like tablets. So medicine-free, supplement-free living. If I'm to actually have that become a healthy habit, there are many practices that I'm going to put in place. And really that calls for transforming my relationship to food and really using food as medicine, knowing that we do require medicine from time to time. And therefore, what is going to replace that? There's like a little bit of a viral infection going in India at the moment, where people get very severe cough and cold, and it lasts about 2 weeks. And people, it doesn't have the corona type symptoms other than the cough and cold part, but it is quite severe, and it really bungs up your chest, and you keep releasing phlegm for days on end. What was interesting was putting this medicine-free living as a habit, where food is medicine, and there are various other practices that I also work with. Like some of you have shared, there's a cold band that I put. It's not ice cold, it's just a big piece of cloth that I wash in cold tap water and squeeze it and then tie it around my tummy. And that helps the digestion process of any undigested food and brings in a powerful oxygenation of that whole region, the abdominal cavity, and all of the organs that it houses. And that wonderful blood supply and oxygenation of that area enables a very smooth excretion of that which doesn't serve me. And from time to time, like when I got this cough and cold, I used a smaller band and I tied it around my neck, because I thought, okay, I'm feeling a buildup of mucus in my throat. What if I actually really did that, flushing my throat with blood? Because what happens is when you have a cold band that you put and your body internally is hot, then it immediately starts to rebalance the temperature. So there's a gush of blood that goes in to heat up that area. So you're literally applying fire, the element of fire. What does the element of fire do? It destroys. In its destruction, it transmutates to a new state. So in putting this practice, I was like so present to, okay, I'm now powering up the fire element. Of course, the sinuses get completely bunged up as well when you have this. So I would put this band around my head as well. Only 30 minutes. It's not a big deal. And when I felt that I was getting this infection, it was starting to build up, I did this practice 4 times a day. It's a lot. 30 minutes each. And it's not a lot because 2 days it took for the whole thing to completely clear out. And I'd had people all around me for several weeks working through this situation that they were going through. So I did that. What I also did as a practice, this is talking about wellness. Once you understand the distinction that well-being is a state of feeling comfortable, happy, and healthy, and wellness is the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis, then you can really work with it. What I also did was I felt, okay, food is my medicine. But at this point in time where I actually want my body to use the regular excretory channels to excrete out any buildup of unnecessary phlegm, and through the oxygenation, I'm going to transform my internal terrain with the alkalization that takes place with oxygen, such that bacteria automatically destroy themselves. I cannot ingest food. I've got to give my digestive system a rest from any external stimulus. So I didn't eat for 2 days, just stayed on liquids for those 2 days. And I was ready to do it for as long as it took, but I didn't need to do it any more than 2 days. Literally, your body tells you, okay, I'm done with this. It's time that you can eat. So it was 2.5 days is what it took for it to release. Now, that experience was so fabulous, and it was easy for me to implement it because quite a lot of that I was already practicing and it had already become a habit. So I use the band at least once a day, and wherever I can, twice a day. I just do that. And that has become a habit. Once a day has become a habit. So for me too, when there was a crisis, a moment of crisis, to then turn the volume up on something that you already have as a habit is so much easier than adding on additional work to something that you're not accustomed to doing. But the most important thing I would say to you to take from this is understanding the difference between well-being and wellness in the context of your mental state. Well-being is an act of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. Wellness is the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis. And in doing so, you attain a thriving ability, not simply a surviving ability. The second, anything you want to say or add, Dea, to this? Because this is a really important point.
Yeah, I like that. How you distinguish the two of them, complementing each other. But, practicing the healthy habits, like even just chanting or mantras or
Yeah.
when I'm doing my breathing exercise, I do Sat Nam. Like I just do something simple. Like it has to be almost simple for you to develop the habit. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Something that you can maintain and do on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was illuminating for me to really get, and also understanding that it is an act of practicing such that it becomes a habit was huge. And this recent experience, literally, it was last week that I had this, and everybody was saying, oh, we're going to have to change the Fed sessions and lots of stuff. And I said, no, I'm going to be fine in 2 days.
And then the habit, when you have the habits, it's just so much easier and it actually feels good. So it's easier to do once you develop the habit.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And people are fine with it. People who care about you know that you already know how to do this. It's actually you're in good hands, as opposed to, pushing you to go and follow forms of treatments that you may not want to.
Yeah, I totally agree with the natural, food is your medicine and everything else is secondary. Like I love that practice. It's powerful.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm really being present. And that's why I've changed the series from 12 building blocks to the human miracle. So present to the human miracle with sharing this body of work. So now let's look at the second anchor point. The second anchor point is the anchor point that we usually associate with mental well-being, which is your thoughts, your thinking. Thoughts lead to, so whatever you think, and you think it a lot, and you think it again and again, it becomes your belief. And it's quite commonly known that our beliefs give us our experience of the world. And it sets our mind into those beliefs. No doubt it says, because it's an anchor point. And if we've already anchored ourselves that mental is all about thoughts, then we've already attached our anchor to that anchor point. And as a result, but really, you can take that anchor off and attach it to another anchor point whenever you want. It's just that when we don't know of anything else, then that's where we are stuck. And as a result, it's only our beliefs that land up creating, our mind is set on those beliefs, and that gives rise to our mindset. And mindset is a consequence of beliefs. And beliefs are a consequence of your thoughts. But your thoughts are not necessarily reality. Thoughts are often, vast majority of your thoughts are often meaning-oriented, as opposed to just factual observations. Because a factual observation is not a thought. It's just so. It's a description, It's like you chronicling what's actually occurring. The moment a thought comes in, there's a little bit of meaning that's going on anyway. And then when you start thinking it a lot, it becomes a belief, and we've already now set our mind as into this anchor point, then our beliefs give us our world. And that's what is meant by mindset. Now this was an interesting one, and there are many people that I work with where, and when I do some of my group sessions, I often talk about a listening filter. We have a filter through which we listen to people. And I use the example of, if I was to say I'm Mynoo Maryel and I'm a politician, you listen to me through your filter of a politician, whatever that is. Now, all of that, or the filter, is again a belief. And the belief has come from a thought that we at some point formulated about these people are whatever. You can fill in the blanks. And then our mind gets set on that. And as a result, even though we are so blessed with the magnificence of so many beings, each one with their wonderful miracle lens, we don't fully engage with that. Not only that, our mind gets set about ourselves. I just don't have any willpower. When it comes to food, this was my story about myself. I had a listening filter. I don't have any quantity control. So I would listen to myself in the context of food, as I have no quantity control. Or if I'm feeling emotional about anything, good or bad, I just go to food. And it's uncontrollable. Well, I set those things. None of that is real. What is real is what's occurring in the moment. And what's occurring in the moment is making your heart beat. Your heart is beating. It is the song of the heart. You are in the realm of miracles. So mental anchor point is where you watch your thoughts and return to facts, return to facts, return to facts is my mantra there. I'm sharing this mantra because that's my mantra to myself. Now, there are times where certain things have occurred and it feels unacceptable because it has changed what was the fact into something that really you didn't expect. And that's fine. It's a fact that something occurred. You didn't expect it. And it's causing you inconvenience right now. It's causing you upset. That's a fact. The moment you acknowledge it, it doesn't then start to multiply meaning. Because now you can do something. Okay, don't like this fact. What can I do to change it? And you really go into what can I do? The moment meaning comes in, suddenly blame is like a twin sister of meaning. And so blame comes in. And hey, this is the anchor. Your mental thoughts are the anchor point for mental well-being. You're now no longer, because you put your anchor on these, into these thoughts, you are no longer now feeling happy, healthy, comfortable. And you start blaming or attributing a person or something that has occurred. And because thoughts lead to more thoughts, and some of those you think a lot and they become beliefs, and your aliveness starts to diminish. You get animated, but you don't necessarily feel comfortable, happy, and well and healthy. So this was a very interesting understanding that, okay, this is only one of the 7. I don't have to attribute all of my mental spectrum of wellness to only my thoughts. I can literally go into the wellness aspect and start practicing something, which is a daily habit, right? So when I went into this space, we had a little bit of a situation that has taken place, for example, on one of the business ventures that we have. And it's not that it wasn't expected to occur this way if we had lost track of something that we should have kept our finger on the pulse. We did it. And exactly what we could have predicted at that time has occurred, which is not comfortable, not comforting, actually. Now, it's so easy to get stuck with that. But when I went into, okay, I see all of that. I'm not making those, I took it away from beliefs by acknowledging that, okay, I've been thinking it. And in that thought, there's a little bit of blame that's coming in. And that blame plus the thought is actually starting to regenerate into a belief that is going to give me a very depleting experience of life. Because I started experiencing a bit of depletion already. So then I thought, okay, I have 7 anchor points to shift my mental state. I'm going to go into a habit, a healthy habit that I already have. And I'm just going to implement it a lot. So I use the miracle lens as a habit. And I used a very specific aspect of the miracle lens. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, because that is also one of the anchor points. And then, lo and behold, a huge breakthrough occurred simply by shifting from being anchored to the thought spin, which is meaning applied to a fact, that was starting to give me, get into the realm of beliefs. Before it became a mindset, I was able to interrupt that and go into a realm of miracle lens. And from that emerged an opening of what action I could take. Because here, previously, I was in a space where there's nothing that I could do that would shift anything. It would take a long time. And within minutes, I had 7 things that we could do. 2 of them we action already. And one of them showing a lot of promise. And I'm talking about, this is only yesterday afternoon, because I'm also preparing for this session. I feel so fortunate to be doing these sessions because I get to implement them. And now the fact that you've implemented something once, you know that you've already created a cellular memory. It's up to you to put it into practice and convert it into a habit, should you choose to. Now, the fact that I was able to take a hopeless situation where there was helplessness as well, and turn it around within a matter of minutes, I know it. I can do it anywhere, and if I can do it, anyone can. So the mental anchor point, which is the thought, you can work with that anchor point in a variety of ways. So be aware, even acknowledging that this experience that you're having, which doesn't feel that great, is really a function of your thoughts. And going back to what's the fact of what occurred, what actually occurred. And returning back to facts breaks that pattern of an automatic slide into more anxiety and anguish. Let's look at the third anchor point. The third anchor point is onward, onward. And I mean, I'm so used to saying onwards, but I don't edit anything when I receive it as an intuitive download. So I wrote down onward. And I just thought, is there a difference between onward and onwards? There is. Onward means a forward direction. Onwards means continuing in the same direction. Very different. So onward is the anchor point, not onwards. Onward, where you are, where there is a forward direction that you are taking. So with the first and the second anchor points, wellness, which is a practice of healthy habits that you put into place daily, such that practice itself becomes a habit. And then you're learning how to work with your thoughts, now applying that understanding to something specific that you are going to move forward, something that might be stuck that you want to get into a forward direction on. That's applying your anchor to this anchor point of onward. What happens when there is lack of mental wellness? People feel stuck. People feel helpless. People feel there's nothing that we can do. Or they overthink. Because they feel out of control, they overthink or overact to get back control. You're not moving forward. So the forward direction actually, gets hampered. It becomes chaotic. Forward direction is forward direction. It's not chaotic. In amidst the chaos, you can actually find a forward direction. Like the miracle lens certainly breaks the pattern and gets you there. So this was a useful one. Onwards means continuing in the same direction, which can come afterwards. Once you actually snapped out of the mental funk that you may be in, and you've got that forward direction happening, then you can continue in the same direction, which you will, because if you are to take on the wellness part, which is practicing good, healthy habits on a daily basis, that enables you to continue in the same direction. The onward anchor point is extremely important for you to be able to put in place regenerative strategies. And we're going to talk with regenerative is, I believe, also one of the anchor points. Well, it's not an anchor point, it's the consequence of all of these anchor points. You literally create a regenerative, thriving result. The fourth anchor point is forward. And to me, onwards and forwards went together. That's how I just use them. But I love it. I love it because I have set to myself with this stuff that I'm doing for me, Friday morning now, or every Thursday evening in the US, what I want is to understand what is that 0.01% that produces 100% result. And hence the nuances that get brought out. The fourth anchor point is forward. Forward is, that there's a different variety of ways in which we use forward. Forward could be to send or pass goods or information to someone, forward something to someone, something like that, right? And the other one is looking forward, expecting something with pleasure. It's like feeling happy that something's going to happen. So with the forward anchor point, in the context of mental well-being, when you are in a state where you're feeling comfortable, happy, and healthy, then passing it on to someone actually multiplies it. So this is about sharing. This is about really anchoring for yourself some of your own stories of what has occurred for you, what has become possible, what has become available to you when you are in the state of being happy, healthy, comfortable. And so, and in your sharing, you're passing it on to someone, and when you are authentic in your shares, people don't just say, oh, good for you. They actually start thinking, actually, even I've had that. And it becomes a beautiful exchange that starts to occur. So when someone is in a pattern where they're deeply distressed mentally, and with the recent Hamas-Israel conflict that has occurred, there are many people that I know on both sides, of this conflict, who were very disturbed by the whole thing. There was nothing forward other than, propagating the conflict even further. So for me to be able to break that pattern by simply saying, okay, it's fine, let's just unconditionally accept what is and let's move forward, well, it would have been disrespectful and actually not honoring of the state that they were in. But for me to just take on where they are at as a sponge empath wasn't actually going to add any value either in actually moving things forward. And the mental state of everyone involved and engaged was going from bad to worse. So what I saw there was, I did facilitate a journey, and it was a journey of discovery through completion, which I invited them to be a part of. And this discovery in terms of this conflict and all of the experiences, because, there was one particular person in this group who was from there, who 3 of his children had gone to a music concert where there was a bomb blast, and 2, the 3 kids with their 5 friends, 7 or 8 of them had gone there. And there was only one of their sons that survived. Everybody else is gone. So it's like, it does something to you, even just listening to what has occurred, let alone the state of the parents that were there, and let alone the state of this child who has survived. Because mental well-being's gone. Physically, he's only suffered some scratches and scrapes. But the shock was huge. So for me to then go into let's unconditionally accept all that was not at all going to move anything forward. And so I realized that onward was not going to happen. Onwards had to be interrupted. Continuing in the same direction wasn't going to serve. anything. Talking about the miracle lens at this point wasn't going to crack it at all. Where I needed to get to was to use the forward anchor point, where they could actually see a glimmer of something positive, where they are able to switch their own light bulb on about it. Then they will start talking to others. And then we can actually be able to look forward to expecting something with pleasure. So it took a little bit of time from my side in terms of holding the space for this person, because they weren't even expressing themselves. They were just in everything's gone. Everything's gone. The world does not exist anymore. And there's nothing that anyone can do. And that is what was being passed on by them. So I actually got 2 of their friends to join in, and a couple of their cousins, of the cousin from the mother's side, came in. The father was far more distraught and was totally shut off from anything than the mother was. And I just asked them to express whatever it is that they were present to. And to my surprise, the mother was the first one that spoke. And it was anger. It was anger. And she was like refusing to cry, but just expressing her anger. And that was fine. And her cousin kept saying, just, it's okay, just shed a tear. And I had to like literally stop everyone and just allow whatever emerged to emerge from her. Normally, I wouldn't stop either. I would just allow that conversation to occur, but it was actually in that onward spin, continuing in the same direction. So as someone who was holding the space, I had to invite them to just allow her to express. And they said, yes, she's not expressed very much, so it's okay to do that. In her own expression, they have 2 other children. She automatically started expressing how she's seen her 2 children grow up. And then she started appreciating the compassion that they had towards their sibling. And then she started expressing. So now, as she started expressing these observations purely as fact, my intention there was stay on fact, stay on fact, stay on fact. The fact itself was humongous, which means that any even tiny meaning to that was going to just catapult. And in her staying with fact, she actually automatically started using the miracle lens, because that is the natural way of us to observe anything. She started using the miracle. The smile didn't come, but what made her cry was her observing her 2 younger ones, little ones, 7-year-old and 9-year-olds. How they had really stepped up and become the mother and father of this family. And how she observed them talking to each other to support this process. And realizing that actually they were not fearful. The fear was anchored in them as parents, because now they wanted to protect whatever they had. But actually, and then she started saying, in some ways, it is good that we didn't want to speak anything, because it meant that we didn't suffocate these kids with our own fear. They actually were able to express themselves. And then she was like, where did they even learn to do this? How amazing. And then I opened the doorway for others to express where they are at as well. And together, we got ourselves to a point where I said, are you willing to do a journey with me? A journey of completion, so that we can take away and release this conflict vibe and then co-create how you as a family, you as a culture or a society, and you as a human in this world is going to emerge. We did that journey. And once we completed that journey, I ended it with a human vibe attunement. So that deep-seated connection of their soul being and the human form occurred. And then we use the miracle lens. So you see how this forward as an anchor work operates? It was important for them to break their mental state of deep, lack of well-being, so they could arrive at something that they were passing on, which actually was moving things in a forward direction. Once we got to the miracle lens, then it was like, okay, continue in the same direction. Since then, they've had a family gathering, and, they're like 280 of their family members came together, which she said, even when we've had family reunions, we've had maximum managed to get maybe 10, 12 people. And the message I got was, we feeling that all is good, even though, yes, around us, there's a lot of talk of things not being good, but I also feel we will thrive. We will thrive. It's not about survival. It is about thriving. And then there's much to look forward to. This is the message I got. There's much to look forward to. And I mean, at this point, at any point here, what has occurred is so huge that all that I can do is to hold the space for them to break their own patterns, open new doorways, facilitating them to lift their own foot and cross the threshold.
And Mynoo, I wanted to say that sometimes the grieving process takes a little time. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes we also take it on that the grieving process takes time, and then people around them forget about it and they still haven't grieved. Right? So to get to a point of completion in a grieving process, the 7 anchors of mental well-being are absolutely paramount. And then they can take their time to regroup. What takes time there is the regrouping post something that occurs that makes you grieve. But what we say is the grieving process takes time. So the regrouping doesn't occur. The grieving also doesn't occur. That experience of being in a state of complete discomfort or disarray is what gets prolonged.
Yeah, I think allowing that safe space to express and grieve is so important as a forward.
Yeah, and recognizing that they may not want to speak anything.
Exactly, and honoring that space for them if they need that.
Yeah, yeah. So using these anchors really helps. If we'd only stayed, you see what I mean by, if we'd only stayed with a thought anchor, where would we go with it? Only anchoring beliefs that were going to give us a pretty distressful experience or fearful experience.
Right.
So these anchors are really important. Use them. I mean, you come across a whole variety of situations there in the work you do. So use these. This was like such a crazy story, and crazy is like not the word for it really. And yet I saw it play out by them leading it themselves. I was only doing a little bit, anything more than that. That my only job was get back to facts. That was the only part of facilitation that I was doing, and keeping my finger on the pulse, vigilant, that I want to see them moving into a forward direction,
Mm-hmm.
not forwards, not onwards, propagating the same. So let's look at some other anchor points. Number 5. The 5th anchor is behave, be and you have. It is really about being. And the good thing is, when you are human, your being, when you choose to be human, you are being love. And love is absolutely a well-being frequency, and it's an amplifying one. And the reality is, in being love, you are a magnificent being. So the way you work with this anchor, I'm again very aware of the time. In working with this anchor, choose to live the be lifestyle. Choose your be words. Start creating a collection of be words where you choose you're going to be a certain way. Describe what that way of being is. What state would you be in if you were being that way? Focus your attention on being. And you will have whatever it is that you desire. Like the cousins or the family members of this family and friends, I got to know about this situation that I just shared through a friend in Dubai. And he reached out to me asking if I could support in any way. That's how I got to know. So they were all what they wanted to have was some form of returning back to the center and finding a way forward again, a way in which grieving would be complete. So they could all move forward because there were young children still there. That's what they wanted to have. By choosing and doing was not getting there. Doing was not doing anything. It was only propagating and making the situation worse. But being love, that's all I asked them to do. Let's just hold the space and allow for whatever flows to flow. They didn't need to choose a B word. They simply became human. And in being human, love was who they were. And this family was completely in that bubble of love. The bubble of love itself had these sparkles of comfort and happiness and health. Without it being in their face, they were like little spritzers that they were experiencing at a cellular level, and they were able to open up and move forward. So, and then we did choose the B word, and they are working with the B words. The 6th anchor is guarantee. Guarantee and take nothing for granted. Guarantee is basically a promise or an assurance that something is of a particular quality or particular benefit. That's what a guarantee is. And taking for granted, take nothing for granted is it's like expecting that something is going to occur in a certain way. Now, the reality is take nothing for granted is the modus operandi. That's a foundation. It's one of those 10 commandments of this new world. So in this realm, where take nothing for granted is the modus operandi, then what can you guarantee? You can guarantee that what you have, you can guarantee that you do have a miracle lens. You can guarantee that whilst your heart is beating, it is thinking about something. So really go into looking at what guarantees do I have at this point? because that's what you can go to as an anchor when your mental space is violated. Because remember, your lack of mental well-being, who is the one who feels comfortable? Who is the one who feels happy and healthy? You. So your mental well-being is destroyed or enriched by you and the choices you make. So given that take nothing for granted is what's going on, useful to understand what is it that I can guarantee in myself. The seventh anchor is there is only you, and it is not always about you. There is only you that can actually, once you understand this as an anchor, that something has happened and it's really destroyed me or devastated me, okay, there is something there in my field that is opened to allow that to occur. And whatever has occurred isn't because the world is against you. Get back to facts. But when we make things to be about us or take it personally, we often combine it with blaming someone or something. And that starts to destroy us, or destroy our harmony, inner harmony, and we start going out of balance. So take that anchor point. There is only me. I'm in this state, I'm experiencing where I'm at on account of the choices that I've made. It's a consequence of the choices I've made. Now, what can I do that's different? And there are these 6 other anchors. If you pass on the buck to someone else, then you're in that giving meaning space. And it's very difficult to get out of that because meaning only regenerates meaning. And ultimately, you barely survive, gasping for air. And even if you're gasping for air, you can use any of these anchor points and completely transform your mental well-being, starting with wellness, understanding what wellness itself is, using one or several of the practices that you have put in place. Over to you, Dea, to complete.
Oh my, that was very nourishing, I would say, and loaded with a lot more than just our mental thoughts. So thank you, Mynoo. The wellness and bringing new habits in and practicing new habits, and all these different things about moving forward, onward, being love. Being love, I love that. Just being love, that can move us into a grounding space and not taking anything for granted. And it's all about you, but then it's not always about you, that paradox there. So you can let things go.
The main thing is, it is you, there is only you. It's not that it is about you. There is only you.
There is only you.
You
and
are
then
the creator of the world. It's not always about you.
It's not always about you. And
That,
all these are stabilizing and
Yeah.
grounding forces for us so that we can stay alive and stay present. And they're so helpful, even if we just do 1 or 2 of them. Yeah.
Yes. And anytime you get into a funk, you know that there are 7 to choose from.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. And thank you, Mynoo, once again for a lovely session. Very powerful.
Thank you.